that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder hope gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is an Energy Week special that has nothing to do with energy, except human energy, maybe.
Well, it's a very important one, though.
Yeah, it is something that Tom and I both think is important. And what happened was over the weekend, on the 12th and 13th of July, I put together a set of slides asking us, how are we doing on COVID-19? You want to put that up, Tom? By the way, if you want to break in, just break in and say whatever you got to say. As of July 12th, only 4 countries with populations over 20 million have had death rates higher than the United States.
And who were they?
They were, worst of all, UK.
Okay.
Second was Spain. Third is Italy. Fourth is France. Now, there are other...
Well, we're going to touch base on all of those.
All of those. Yeah. There are other countries that are worse than the United States. But, you know...
They don't have 20 million people.
They don't have 20 million people. San Marino has got much worse than the United States. But do you know where San Marino is?
No. It's in the middle of Italy somewhere, isn't it?
It's actually surrounded by Italy.
Yeah.
And there are not a lot of people there. So, it's
basically just a town that's its own country.
Basically, it's like a small, medium-sized county. It has more than one town. These are screenshots that I've put together from Worldometers, and you can see the link right there. And I'll actually include it on the thing for BCTV so that you can click to it and see what it is, because the numbers will be different than they are here. But these are links to Worldometers, which I check every day, and I wanted to find out how are we doing, because the President of the United States is saying we're doing fine. Mike Pence, the Vice President, is saying we're doing fine. They've got all kinds of people who are saying we're doing fine, except, of course, Anthony Fauci, who is saying, no, we're not doing fine. We've got to do better because things are getting bad.
That's what's happening.
And if people are getting sick and dying, we should be paying attention to that.
Absolutely.
And we shouldn't be basing our approach to this on the opinions of talk show hosts.
Well, they're deprecating this guy Fauci. And why?
Because he doesn't agree with them.
But he seems to be qualified.
And they're not.
One thing I read about him, he's never been a practicing medical doctor.
Yeah, he hasn't had time. For crying out loud, he's been the head of that organization.
Doing research on it.
He's been the head of that organization since 1986. Okay. What I did was I went out and I got the death rates for the 4 countries. You want to put this graph up, Tom?
I guess I'll do it this way. Okay.
I should, if I'm going to cough, I should put this on. How's that? You able to hear me?
You're going to be garbled.
I'm going to be garbled. Okay, I'll put it on if I think I'm going to cough. These are the daily death rates from the UK, and I want you to look at the shape of this graph. When the COVID-19 virus came in, nobody really knew anything about it. It came in, hit hard, hit fast.
Went right up quick.
Went up quick. Now, this is not as quick as it would have been if it were measles or smallpox. That would have been really quick.
But it is going down, steadily down.
It's going steadily down. The rate of transfer for COVID-19 is for each person, if it's untreated, you can expect 3 people to get it from that person. For measles, you can expect 15. So if this were measles, this would be much, 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 much worse. But what happened was, as they got up to the top, they started to realize that there are certain things that you have to do in order to prevent this from spreading. And they started to act on that. And that started to get brought to bear. So the death rates went down. And right now, the death rates are getting to be fairly low compared to what they had been, maybe a tenth of what they had been. They didn't do as well on this as Spain, Italy, and France. The other
but
three,
they're still going down.
Yeah, the other 3 countries that are worse than the United States and have populations above 20. Here is 20 million. Here is what the graph for Spain looks like. Very steep increase, Someone,
Almost none now.
yeah, but now they're down to almost no deaths. And if you again they figured out that there are certain things that you do. They instituted them, they kept them in place, and when the death rates went down, and got really down, they started saying, okay, now we can start opening up a little bit. And they're opening up cautiously, and in doing that, they're able to keep the death rates down, low. And they've been doing that for some weeks.
And we're not doing stuff like that.
Not yet. Here's the death rates for Italy. It's similar.
Almost the same picture.
Almost the same picture as Spain. It went down not quite as fast. Spain, I think, no, it was about the same. And I want to point out the Spain, the graph here, the scale is from 0 to 1,250. For Italy, it's 0 to 1,000. And actually, I could go back and say
So they could be the same numbers, they just look different.
yeah, the spikes are a little bit higher for Italy. Here is France, where the spikes are much higher, and it's 0 to 2,000. And the numbers are going to be the same, because if you took those spikes out, those numbers would, this would be a fatter curve in the middle. But basically, they're all down to basically very close to zero.
Very close to zero.
Here is the United States. It didn't decline.
Going back up again.
And it is going up. Now, the fact that this is going up is something that I find very disturbing, because people don't die the same day they get symptoms. They don't die the same day they get diagnosed. They die later. And so that going up is because people who are dying who were diagnosed a week ago or 2 weeks ago, or possibly even longer. So the question here is, why is this happening? And what do we do about it?
Well, we're a lot of people are ignoring the steps they got to take.
In the United States,
Arrogantly ignoring them.
they are encouraged to ignore them
It seems like
by the federal government and by the governors of some states. Now, let's look at the infection rate, because the infection rate precedes the death rate.
yeah, they should
Okay,
be running on the same direction.
yeah, in the same direction, but the infection rate should precede it. So infections start first and deaths start second. Here is the infection rate, new cases in the United Kingdom. It goes up, it tapers down, not as much as it does in other countries, but it is still going down, although it looks like it could have gone up in the last day. But you can't really count everything on that. So there is the United Kingdom. Here is Spain. The infection rate went up, and then it tapered down, and it's been down close to zero. It's up a tiny little bit at the end. Spain has been opening up again. So it's a tiny increase in the case of they're opening up, and they have to ask themselves, how far are they going to go in opening up? Because they don't want to have a lot of this through the population. Here is Italy. It ramped up, it ramped down. It's down low now. This is they know what to do, and they're doing it. Here is France. Again, they ramped up, they ramped down. Now the rates are a little bit higher than they were, 3 weeks ago? But they've opened up a little bit.
They're pretty flat.
And the difference is very small. They're pretty flat. Now, let's look at the United States.
Wow.
So what have you got? Well, it ramped
We're
up.
opening up.
Yeah, it ramped up, and the federal government was being led by a person who said, this is a hoax. Basically he started by saying it's a hoax. And then he said, that, by the way, is not a non-productive cough. Non-productive means no mucus comes up. That's because I've got mucus in my throat, which is not a symptom of COVID-19. And it's also not a constant cough. He said this is a hoax, and then he said we stopped it at the border. Now, Anthony Fauci wanted the federal government to get involved in this, and he was pushing Donald Trump to get involved in this. I'm going to say on the 16th of March. If it wasn't on the 16th of March, it was very, very early on. And you'll notice that the rate was very small at the 16th of March. It hadn't even started yet. But he was saying, you got to take this seriously. And it ramped up. and it ramped up and it ramped up. And the President of the United States has been casting about looking for people to blame other than himself. And what happened as a result of that? Well, we live in an environment where the President of the United States is kind of the chief priest of the believers, and he tells them what to believe. So the governors follow his lead, a lot of them.
Yeah.
And, you know, he said this is not important, it's a little flu. But, you know, we saw the death rates. This is not a little flu.
The numbers aren't lying. He is.
Yeah. And what happened here is when some states, New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Vermont, some states introduced rules saying that you have to have masks on. And by the way, Tom and I are not wearing masks, but we have a plastic thing between us.
Well, they can see us. I could knock on it, but they're not looking at
They're not looking
us.
at us, but it's a guard to make sure that our faces are kept away from each other. This just tapered very slowly from a high of maybe 30,000 people getting it every day to a low of about 25,000, and then all of a sudden it starts going up. Well, what
We're up
happened?
to 70.
You'll notice that June 19th, it was already going up. But at June 19th, Donald Trump was already telling people, you don't have to worry about this, open up the economy.
Yeah.
And he had been for a week or two. And then we had various other governors saying, yeah, let's do it that way. And we had, including the governor of Florida, where they've had numbers as high as like 15,000 people getting it in one day in Florida. And
Wow.
our numbers are growing. Now, if you look at this, you can see we're getting to a point where 70,000 people are getting it in one day. But the death
We're
rate,
getting more now, almost double
what we had been,
what we have been
yeah,
getting.
which is a point that
What the hell's going on here?
the thing that's going on is that the people in Washington and the people who obey them are saying this is not important.
It's becoming patriotic to disobey the orders.
They're bringing the CDC into question. They're bringing Anthony Fauci into question. They're bringing scientists into question, and people are dying as a result of this. How many people? Well, if you look at this, you'll see 70,000 people in one day. According to Johns Hopkins, the death rate for this stuff is like 4-point-something%.
That's high.
And 4% of 70,000 people is 2,800 people. The number of people who got this yesterday, we could expect 2,800 people to die from that.
Wow.
And they haven't shown up in the figures yet. That figure, the graph that we saw early on of the number of people dying in the United States was going up at the end, but it's not going up like it's going to, and we can pretty much guarantee that.
So the message to take away from this is don't play games, guys.
Yeah,
This
don't
is
play
serious
games.
stuff.
Donald Trump declared war on this after saying it was a hoax,
Yeah.
after saying that he stopped it at the border.
Yeah.
He declared war and wanted $2.2 trillion to deal with the economic problems that it was causing. Okay, it's a war. And so far, 137,000 Americans have died in that war,
Yeah.
which is more Americans that died in any war we've been in, except the Civil War and the Second World War, which were numbers 1 and 2. And the death rate in the United States, on average, is higher than it was in either of those wars. People are dying faster. There were something like 280,000 people, Americans, died in the Second World War, but that was 4 years long, and this has only been 4 months, and we've had 137,000. And the same thing a similar calculation can be done for the Civil War. People are dying faster than they were during the Civil War.
Wow.
And why is that happening? It's happening because
Because of the things these people are saying.
yes, it's because of the things that people are saying.
I mean, we really should be scared to death
Well,
about
you know, as I said, as I've been telling people, Tom, we've got advantages here. This particular virus is extremely delicate. You know, I was always told if you want to sanitize your hands or make them reasonably sanitary, wash them for a full minute in hot, soapy water. To get rid of this virus, they're saying wash it for 20 seconds in water with soap.
Yeah.
That soapy water kills it doesn't kill it. It disables the virus. The virus
I
is
know
not
soap
alive.
is important. Don't just rinse the hands. Use
Yeah.
soap.
The thing about the soap is this. The virus is extremely vulnerable to something in the environment. Haven't read what, but I would assume that it's oxygen, because there's lots of oxygen, and oxygen is pretty reactive. And the thing is, it's protected by an outer layer of fat. And that layer of fat is going to be just molecules thick. And soapy water dissolves the fat.
Dissolves the fat.
So
Right.
all of a sudden, that virus gets exposed when that area is dry, and it's just going to be disabled by that oxygen almost instantly.
So it doesn't even have to be hand cleaner. It should be soap.
Yes, that's right. Although alcohol will do the same thing.
Yeah.
I don't think it does it as well, because you need a really high concentration of alcohol. You could do the same thing with ammonia. Ammonia would disable this.
Okay.
There's a lot of different things that will disable this virus. The virus,
Cleanliness is the key.
the virus doesn't last long.
Uh-huh.
If it gets onto your shoes and you put your shoes in the closet and you leave them there for a week,
It's gone.
it's gone. And in fact, if you know about this, different surfaces are destructive to the virus. The virus doesn't last very well on copper or brass. It'll only last for about 4 hours. But basically what's happening is we've got people dying, but we've got an excess number of people dying because of ineptitude and inaction on the part of the federal government and those state governments that obey.
I'm listening to the radio and I'm hearing about all the relaxations that are going on.
Well, they're starting to stop the relaxations. The governor of Oklahoma got it.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. The governor of Oklahoma got it, but he didn't get it at that big show they had down there on the 20th of June, because it's been too long since then. Well, I got news for you. He might have got it from somebody who also attended.
Yeah.
And
Like he
furthermore,
did.
one of the things that I've read about that was that every single person who was on the staff and every single person who was in the Secret Service who attended was isolated.
Is that so?
Yeah. So, okay, how many people are dying because of ineptitude? Let's go to the next slide, Tom. This is an interesting site. It's called TrumpDeathClock.com. This is a screenshot that I took on Monday, which was the 13th of July. And it says that 80,000 people have died who shouldn't have. In January 2020, I'm just reading this, the Trump administration was advised that immediate action was required to stop the spread of COVID-19. According to NIAID Director Dr. Anthony Fauci, quote, there was a lot of pushback, end quote, to this advice.
They didn't want to hear it.
They didn't want to hear it. And as a matter of fact, now they're blaming him because he didn't say what they think he should have said. President Trump declined to act until the 16th of March, which is where that
was a peak.
no, that was where it started to go up.
Okay.
I mean, we could go back. Let's go back. Just leave it. Let's go back. This is new cases, and you'll notice 16th of March is where the new cases start. The peak was about the 5th of April, and then there were other peaks later. Whoop, sorry. Experts estimate that had the mitigation measures been implemented a week earlier, 60% of American COVID-19 deaths would have been avoided. Now, if you think about this, these deaths come from new cases, and the new cases started clearly going up on the 16th of March, which is where Donald Trump implemented that order, or started working on it. But the numbers that we're seeing in that first 2 weeks, that this is let's see, 16th of March to maybe the beginning of April, almost the entire growth of this happened because of people who got sick before he implemented his order on it.
Mm-hmm.
And so here we are, 80,000 people on the 12th of July have died because of what do you call it? Dereliction of duty?
Well, that's one word for it.
It's culpable indifference. I mean, how do you account for this? I don't see how you could call this anything but murder.
Well, it's politics.
It's politics. It's political murder.
Yeah.
I mean, the number of people who died here is more. This 80,000, more people than died in the Spanish-American War. More than 80,000 is more than the servicemen who died in the First World War in combat. In American servicemen.
And Korea.
This is absolutely insane. It's absolutely insane. And Mike Pence, now honestly, I don't think Donald Trump is smart enough to be able to understand what he's doing. You know, he said he was a stable genius. He's stable.
Well, he said he's the smartest man in the world.
Yeah, he's stable, but he's only stable because he's stuck in a single rut, which is a rut of self-glorification.
Yeah.
Genius? I have never seen any indication that this man was a genius or even smart. Okay, yeah, he can make money.
Yeah.
Yeah, and bullies can grab money from kids on the playground.
Well, talk about it. He can make money. How many times has he gone bankrupt?
6 that I know of. This is not what it should be. And then we've got Mike Pence, who is a man who I don't think is quite as whackadoodle as Donald Trump, but who claims to be a Christian, and you know, he's a fundamentalist Christian, talking about what an honor it is to be serving under Donald Trump. Well, Donald Trump, for crying out loud, is a deceiver. Yeah. First and foremost, you could call him.
Well, it's easier to understand. He's out for Donald Trump and nothing else.
Yeah, he is maybe the great deceiver we were warned about in the Bible.
That's one possibility.
Mike Pence, do you think maybe you're serving the great deceiver? Well, try this out for size. We were told by the Lord himself that you cannot serve both God and mammon.
Uh-huh.
Donald Trump might be the chosen one, but Satan was the chosen one who was chosen to
chosen to do what?
Chosen to do what? He was chosen to tempt Job.
Yeah.
All right? Donald Trump may be chosen, but chosen to punish America for its devotion to the worship of mammon. Mike Pence, I'm looking at you. I think that you are advancing the worship of mammon and claiming to be a Christian. I'm appalled by this whole thing. Absolutely appalled. Mike Pence, you should resign. Or save yourself and this country.
Well, he doesn't do much anyhow.
He doesn't do much, but he walks around. He walks around telling people what a privilege it is to serve Donald Trump, and
that baffles me.
The COVID-19 crisis is not really a crisis. Yeah. That's what he's doing, and people believe him. And why do people believe him? Well, you know what? I was a Republican, voted almost straight Republican from the first time I voted for Richard Nixon in 1968 until the last time I voted straight Republican in 2002. I voted every other year. Every time I had a chance to vote for anybody who was running for federal office, I took it. And I stopped because in 2003, I finally understood that there were higher-ups in the Republican Party who were denying climate change. And they were being financed in some way by people who were in the fossil fuels industry. And I said, you know what? This is too corrupt for me. When Donald Trump was endorsed by the National Rifle Association, instantly, I resigned my life membership in the National Rifle Association. I'm not some left-wing wacko.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I am now, because I'm mad as hell. You know, really, I mean, this is crazy. Americans are dying because of Donald Trump and Mike Pence and the people who support. Just think about this for a minute. Think about this for a minute.
I should have you up there.
Yeah. Think about this for a minute. How many people's lives would have been saved if Mike Pence didn't have to kowtow to Donald Trump during this whole thing and were able to act as president of the United States instead. I think Mike Pence would probably take science at its word. And that's where we would have been if the Senate had had the good sense to remove Donald Trump from office last year when they could.
They could have done it.
And that means
That was well partisan.
80,000 people are dead because they didn't do that. Thank you,
Interesting
Susan
point.
Collins. What?
Interesting point.
How in the world? And you know, I'm seeing these people on television being interviewed and saying, we're doing great in Florida. 15,000 people get it in one day. We're doing great. What's 4% of 15,000?
Too much for me, for my
It's
sore brain to figure out
600
today.
people.
Huh?
600 people will die because of the people who got that in that one day in that
In
one
day.
state.
Wow.
600 people. If Donald Trump were caught driving drunk down a highway and because he ran into a car because he was going the wrong directions, they would do something about that.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately for everybody, if he had done that, it might have been 6 or 8 people dead, but it's not 6 or 8, it's 80,000. This is just plain appalling. I belonged to a Republican Party that was the real Republican Party. And his Republican Party, pseudo-Republican Party, would call me a rhino, Republican in name only.
Yeah.
Why
Yeah.
do they do that? Because that's exactly what they are.
Yeah. Yeah.
People call names because they're afraid of being found out for who they are. Donald Trump.
Neither the Republican nor the Democratic Party are what they're supposed to be.
I agree with you there 100%. I was infuriated when the last vote went to Hillary or Donald, and I wrote in the person I thought was the closest to had the ideals that were closest to those of the Republicans that I had voted for. Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan. I voted by writing in Bernie Sanders.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, my friends when I was young who were just so afraid that socialists would take over the country. You know, is Bernie Sanders a patriot, do you suppose?
I think so.
I have no doubt of it.
Yeah, I think so.
Is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez a patriot?
I think so.
I think she's absolutely a patriot. Is Donald Trump a patriot? Well, only if he comes from a country called Trump.
Yeah, a good way of putting it. Me first.
Me first. Is Mike Pence a patriot? I'm sorry. I don't think Mike Pence is a patriot. I think he's too afraid to do anything but serve Donald Trump.
Seems that way.
I'm looking at you, Mike Pence. Save this country. And by the way, save your soul.
Good point.
Having ranted and ranted and ranted, maybe Tom and I should say goodbye.
It's about time.
You can't blame Tom. It's all my
I didn't
fault.
know this was coming, folks.
Have a nice time.
Adios.
See you next week. Bye-bye.